Phil, let's talk about this upcoming Tennessee year. One of the things that you do for us here, which I love, is you'll give us the numbers in terms of looking at Tennessee's schedule. And let's go ahead and go through, if we can, the numbers. And let's start on August the 30th with Syracuse. What's the number you have by that game?
I got Tennessee a 14-point favorite in that one.
Okay. By the way, what kind of club does Syracuse have, and do you find them dangerous in that one? Are they potentially dangerous? Because I know the Brown guys does a really nice job. The McCord kid being out of eligibility helps Tennessee. They were very good at the end of last year. Do you think Syracuse comes into that one with a fighting chance, or no?
No, I got Tennessee by 14. When you look at Fran Brown, he did a tremendous job last year. They do bring in Steve Angeli coming over from Notre Dame, but not the experienced quarterback that Kyle McCord was. They lose their top running back, 1,000-yard rusher, and LaQuint Allen. They lose their top 3 receivers from last year. They lose the bulk of the offensive line and a good portion of the defense as well. I thought last year he had a more veteran unit, brought in some key transfers, but this year with just 2 starters back on offense, I think Syracuse is going to struggle, and they play a brutal schedule as well, so there would be nowhere near last year's 10-win total. I like the Vols to win that one, especially with the game in Atlanta.
First of many difficult games for Syracuse this year. I do think Fran Brown does a nice job. All right, ETSU, do you have a number by that?
Over 40.
All right. The Georgia game, September 13th in Knoxville. It's a 3:30 start, one of those marquee window games. What do you think?
I've got Georgia winning the SEC this year. In fact, I think they'll be favored in all 12 of their games. Last year, remember, they had to play 3 really tough road games, and it caught up to them a little bit during the season. I've got Georgia a 6-point favorite in that game, even in Knoxville. Early Vegas line that I saw in the game did have Georgia a 7-point favorite.
That's respectable. It seems like the gap is closing. Georgia kind of coming back to the pack, even though they're a favorite. What is the smallest line that you have next to Georgia? Do you have that near you, or do you have that offhand?
Yeah, let me flip over to my page.
Sure.
I read all the lines that I go through every game, and
sure. Take your time.
The shortest line I have is the Texas game at 3.
Wow.
And then the Alabama game at 4. But both of those games are at home for Georgia.
So Tennessee on the road is a 6-point favorite. They're a 6-point favorite, which is a highly respectable number. Moving along, the UAB Blazers on September 20.
How about 38?
How about damn? How about that sounds painful?
Trent Dilfer has his one arm tied behind his back with that UAB organization that they have going on there. Tough time keeping players. I remember in the spring he just lost basically everybody. His job's on the line, but it shouldn't be a reflection on Trent Dilfer. He's got one arm tied behind his back.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it at a spot like that unless you are able to just find guys and continue to put into the top of the funnel, because they're coming out of that funnel faster than they should in the modern age. Mississippi State on September 20.
I got Tennessee a 10-point favorite on the road.
All right. Arkansas in a return engagement of last year, a game in Neyland Stadium on October 11.
Both teams coming off a bye. Tennessee playing with revenge. I went Tennessee minus 10 in that one. Normally I'd have it tighter because Sam Pittman is a tremendous underdog coach. This guy pulls more upsets than any coach, around. And when he does lose, they usually lose close ones against the big boys. But the fact Tennessee's playing with revenge, I've made it 10.
Alabama on October 18 there.
I've got Tennessee a 10-point dog at Alabama. I think Alabama under Kalen DeBoer is going to have a fantastic second season. Remember his second season at Washington. They made it all the way to the national title game. I know they're replacing their quarterback, but this is a loaded Alabama team, and they're at home where they just don't lose. So I've got a 10-point favorite. I did see an early Vegas line on that, which has Alabama an 11.5-point favorite.
See, I think it's curious. that people are sleeping on DeBoer in Alabama? Two things. First of all, he's recruiting really well going forward. Secondly, if they can figure it out here in year two with Ty Simpson, and I think they're going to be very good as well. They're a team I'm buying. So you might ought to reconsider your position. But it just seems like this guy has been a stone-cold winner everywhere he's been. Why wouldn't he win there? It makes sense that he's going to win there.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 100% on all accounts, Tony.
Kentucky is a club that looks like, with Stoops, to watch the life cycle of these coaches, and it looks like he's at kind of towards the bottom of his rung a little bit, at least in this iteration. What is your number in that one on October the 25th?
Kentucky's always tough as a home underdog, but I think the Vols are the better team across the board. So I've got Tennessee a 7-point favorite in that game.
November the 1st, a very curious, interesting team. Mateer comes in, one of these high-profile transfers with his offensive coordinator from Washington State. How much of Mateer will be left by November the 1st with the schedule Oklahoma plays? I believe you mentioned them earlier, and if you didn't, look, Texas got the generous schedule. Oklahoma's gotten the short end of the stick here with those two teams coming into the league. And last year it was tough going for them, tough sledding. What's your number here way out on November 1 when Oklahoma visits Knoxville?
Yeah, and to me, this may be the key game on the Tennessee schedule as to what type of team they are, and a key game on the Oklahoma schedule as well. I actually have the game a toss-up, Tony, and the reason is this. When I went over their roster with Coach Venables, their defense, there was nothing wrong with their defense last year. They played great defense, allowed just 318 yards per game, held opponents to 95 yards per game, below their season average, despite that rugged schedule. It was number 4 in the country in that category. The problem with Oklahoma last year, they had 0 returning starters on the offensive line. At one point, they were down their top 5 wide receivers. Well, now the receiving corps gets those injured guys back. Gaz added players through the portal. They have a receiving core. They got Jaden Ott added in at running back along with Javonte Barnes. You talked about Mateer, quarterback, running the same offense he ran at Washington State, and now a veteran offensive line. They're going to have a much improved offense. I really thought going through the roster with Coach Venables that this is a playoff caliber Oklahoma team. So to me, this is a key game for both teams. I've got the game at Pick'em coming in. Tennessee, I have questions. Offensive line's a little inexperienced. Defensive line lost a lot. Receiving core lost their top 3 guys. They lose a 1,000-yard rusher. I think that's going to be a key game for both team seasons.
It's going to be a crazy, interesting game. And to your point, I remember last year watching that Oklahoma bunch. We were playing music on a Friday night down at Calhoun's on the river, and it was beautiful down there. And I remember looking up and watching them struggle with Temple. And I'm watching the screen, as I'm sitting there playing guitar, and I'm looking up going, there's no way in the world that team's going to stay on the field with anybody in this league. They couldn't even block Temple that night, Phil. And Oklahoma looks to be, look, that's too proud of a program. They invested in their deal, and they got a coach fighting for his life. Let's move along. So a pick'em, a straight pick'em, Oklahoma in Knoxville, Phil Steele says. New Mexico State on November the 15th. That's our Amachi tailgate game, our Keith Hatfield annual Memorial Amachi tailgate game. New Mexico State, what's your number in that one?
35.
All right, let's move along. This has been a sore spot for us down through the years. Tennessee, for whatever reason, they haven't won in 20-plus years. In Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, while the likes of Southern Miss and Vanderbilt and other people have gone in there and won games. Tennessee makes it look impossible playing there, including under this coach. What is the number November 22nd when the Vols visit Florida?
Now, so far, the first 2 numbers I gave you that Vegas has a number out, Georgia and Alabama. I was siding with Tennessee in those games. Okay. This one, I'm actually siding a little bit with Florida. I think they played extremely well in the Swamp. They've got more coming back than Tennessee does this year. And the Vegas line on this right now is Tennessee +3. But I actually have Florida a 6-point favorite in this game. I think the Gators may just be a slightly better team and are at home, especially if DJ Lagway is 100% healthy.
Yeah, my concern about and look, when you start projecting ahead with these lines, and any of these futures, right? It all depends on how healthy you are. I guess the other thing about Florida, Phil, would be how much does that rugged schedule beat up their entire football team? Because they truly have a brutal schedule. That's an awful schedule they have to go through.
Yeah, once again. And I remember talking to Coach Napier last year. We were going over the schedule. I'm like, Coach, you're playing the toughest schedule in the country. He goes, Phil, at the end of the year, you're not going to think it was quite as tough. And what he meant by that was he felt that they would beat some teams like LSU and Mississippi and Florida State, and that you'd look at the schedule at the end of the year and you wouldn't rank them number one. And I did not rank them as the toughest schedule at the end of the year. I did at the beginning of the year. And this year, I mean, to play at LSU, at Miami of Florida, Texas, and at Texas A&M in a 4-game stretch, even though they do have a bye in there, then later play Georgia and at Ole Miss and Tennessee. That is a brutal schedule. And keep in mind, their season final against Florida State. Florida State's going to be more towards 2 years ago's team than they were last year's squad.
Phil Steele, another team as we go through Tennessee and the numbers, and Phil does this for us every year, Vanderbilt, on November 29, another team with whom the rigors of the league really will take its toll. The Pavia kid that Tennessee saw last year in Nashville and the Pavia kid that Alabama saw were two different quarterbacks. He was all beaten up. It's part of the deal. What is your number in that game?
Yeah, I have Tennessee a 14-point favorite, and it could go either way for exactly what you just mentioned, Tony. If Pavia is 100% healthy, I'd probably make it a little bit tighter because he can pull some upsets. But if it's the same quarterback that was there, banged-up quarterback at the end of the year, or let's say he gets injured in that one, then I'd make it more than that. But I thought 14 was a safe number for this far away from the game.